Are leaders of North Carolina's public university system looking at higher education through rose-colored glasses? A recent column from the James G. Martin Center for Academic Renewal suggests the answer might be yes. Martin Center Policy Associate Shannon Watkins wrote the column, and she joins us now to discuss it. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me, Mitch.
This all stems from comments made at Margaret Spelling's last meeting as the president of the UNC system, and she was talking about some of the good news, polling-wise, about what people think about higher education. And you mentioned in the column that there are some survey results that say North Carolinians do have a high regard for higher ed. Isn't that right?
That is correct. I believe the numbers were up in the 60s of North Carolinians who believe that higher education opens doors to job opportunities. And even there were some in the 60s who also believe that more people should start going to college.
Yeah, so and that in Spelling's words sort of bucked a trend. There are some other places where that you might not have seen that much support as you see in North Carolina.
Right. Her comments went along the lines of, we see confidence declining significantly in other parts of the country, but these statistics in North Carolina sort of defy that trend.
Your column, though, said, yes, this is true, but it doesn't tell the whole story. What else were you hoping that people would know once they read your column?
Well, so confidence in higher education in North Carolina could still be declining. In fact, it's very well possible that it's declining in a similar rate to that of the national level, citing evidence that North Carolinians believe that economic prosperity is a result of higher education is not very countercultural, as she might suggest. There are also national trends of Republicans who believe that, yes, higher education does open doors for economic opportunity, but that can still be true with declining confidence at the same time.
We are chatting with Shannon Watkins. She is a policy associate at the Martin Center for Academic Renewal. And I found it interesting in your column that you did basically put out these two competing narratives. One, that people see higher education as valuable, but at the same time, at least some groups of North Carolinians don't like the direction it's heading or think it's getting worse. Do we see both of these happening at the same time?
I believe we do, and I believe it can be even, let's say, a given individual could believe both of those propositions at the same time. You can believe that I think that in order to get a good job, I'm going to have to get a college degree. At the same time, you can believe I think higher education is causing our culture to go in a direction that I don't think is very good.
If you have both of those things in mind, what to you does that suggest about what the UNC system needs to do? Obviously, if you listen to what President Spelling said, you're going to get the message that, we're doing things well and we could kind of continue on our current track. Mm-hmm. I would think that based on what you wrote that perhaps your notion is you ought to look at this other data because it might point you in a different direction.
Well, exactly. And, I will say that the data asking other questions about more cultural issues, social, political issues that occur on campus, that Gallup poll that I mentioned in the article that surveyed North Carolinians, it didn't really look at those issues. So I think it would be interesting if a follow-up poll was conducted to measure, yes, economic prosperity on one hand, but what do they think about on all these other issues?
Do you think that the university system seems to be paying enough attention to those issues, or is this the kind of thing that they have set aside while they've focused on the economic benefits?
No, I think that's correct. I think they've set it aside and measure confidence solely in terms of solely in economic terms.
What kind of problems does that create if they're not paying attention to this cultural piece?
Well, for one, there are issues that students voice about not feeling heard on campus because they have professors who bring in certain views into class and it feels somewhat intimidating to speak or to sometimes even write assignments that you think, well, if I write this, then I don't know if I'll get a good grade or not. And these are important issues that students face.
And this whole issue of climate and campus climate and the ability for people to speak their mind, we've seen that play out in terms of things like speech codes and other prohibitions on people engaging in the free exchange of ideas. How important is it for the university to get that right and not just make sure that they get people on a path to a good job?
Oh, it's essential. You can't have a true deep education without having that exposure to a variety, a diversity of thought, because that's what really will challenge students to think critically and deeply and for themselves.
Now, we mentioned this all started because of comments that Margaret Spellings made during her last meeting as president. So she's leaving, but obviously we have people who are in the university system who will remain from her staff. We have now Dr. William Roper as the interim president. Do you have a sense that others within the university system have a better grasp on those two different ideas about higher education, or does this seem like a challenge or a problem that goes throughout the UNC system's administration?
I'm afraid it does go throughout the UNC administration. Now, I don't want to be pessimistic early on because Dr. Roper did just become president, so I am hopeful that he'll take a closer look, a more realistic look at these issues, but I'm afraid time will tell.
Well, and certainly one avenue is Dr. Roper is the interim president. We don't know if he will be the new president or if they'll hire someone else. As that discussion is being had and the decisions are being reached, do you hope university leaders, say the Board of Governors, will be focusing attention on this type of issue?
Absolutely. And we've seen the members of the Board of Governors have brought up these issues in the past, and I definitely believe that there's lots of room for conversation to go forward in the future.
Do you think some members of the board really have this on their radar, that they think that this is a problem they need to address?
In terms of diversity of thought, absolutely, yes.
And from the Martin Center's perspective, what do you hope that they will do as they're discussing this? What are some of the good things they could do moving forward?
Moving forward, they could encourage more of the schools in the UNC system to adopt the Chicago principles. UNC Chapel Hill did that recently. It endorses the values of free speech. It goes a little bit beyond or in a different direction than FIRE does with their green and yellow and red light ratings, where it doesn't just measure how a university is doing, but it strictly endorses the value of free speech.
I would guess that whatever step the university takes, you're hoping that they're at least going to keep this issue in front of them and not set it to the side, as it seemed that they did with Margaret Spelling's remarks.
Exactly. That's definitely the hope.